All right, hopefully we are live. If you can hear me, can you go ahead and type something in the chat? Can everyone hear me? Let me get this out of the way. Make sure I have all my projects set up. Hello. Okay, cool. So everyone can hear me. I think I had all the settings set up correctly. It might be somewhat delayed. I'll probably fix that next stream. I'm doing good. How is everyone? Currently, when it comes to this stream, we're going to be working on some of the cosmetic features in here. The last stream we had for Minecraft development, we created this menu. Also notice a typo here, but we created this menu, and that was probably close to a month ago. And so we're gonna come back to this and try and get some of these cool visuals done where you can like fly around in minecarts and stuff like that. And these will eventually be things that you have to have a certain rank for, or you have to unlock through voting crates or just playing. But for development, everyone will be able to have access to them. So if that's something you're interested in, the IP is pinned in the comments. You can go ahead and join. And let's start developing some of these. I'm going to start off with just editing this typo here. So let's see if I can familiarize myself with where all the code is. Let's see here. It is, let me expand this. Okay, so it's spelled hats there. Let me just do a search for hats misspelled. Okay, so here's the problem. That should be the fix right there. So if anyone was familiar with the last Minecraft streams, we do have this auto deployment system. It was causing us some problems, but I was able to go ahead and off stream figure that out. So now it should be working much better. So if we go ahead and build this, it should automatically say it's going to deploy this to the server IP. And it doesn't actually matter that the server IP is here. It will be here in a second because you can technically just ping the server and get it in command prompts, just a development server anyway. But it's going to go ahead and upload that. And then in game, it should actually tell me who uploaded it and what jar was uploaded. It might take a second or two though. So there it says it's deploying it. And then hopefully it sends me a chat message here in a second. There it is right there. So now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and restart Hub 1. It'll send us to Hub 2 automatically. And then hopefully that typo will be fixed in Hub 1. And then from there, we can go ahead and start working on some of these things, probably starting with the vehicles. I'll have to look at my notes to see what I had planned there. Definitely like flying around in a minecart where it flies the direction you're looking is one idea I've used on previous servers, and I'll likely be doing it here as well. So just waiting for Hub 1 to restart where the fix occurred. Okay, so that typo is fixed. Now let's think about what vehicles we can add. I do have to be more familiar with the code I wrote around a month ago for this. I think that I created a basic example, which is useful. Let me see if I can change the stream delay, because I'm noticing a decent amount of delay on when I sent some messages, or when I said something when you guys were saying something. Seems like I can't change it midstream, which is unfortunate. So there will be some kind of delay, but hopefully in future streams it won't be there. I just forgot to change it because it's been around a month since I've live streamed. Okay, so the item fountain here, is that something we actually saw in here? No, it isn't. So let's figure out why the item fountain isn't actually showing here, even though we're not going to start with the item fountains. So I'm going to be reviewing a lot of the previous code I wrote in a different live stream here. Hey everyone, welcome to the stream. So here we have a vehicle category. I think that this is setting the actual item for like right here. And so here we have like the slot that it's at, the minecart, the name of the item, things like that. So let's go into the item fountain category. And here we see we're adding a cosmetic of a diamond. However, we don't actually see that in the menu. Probably because this inventory right here has to actually get that. So we're going to add a cosmetic. And what exactly is this? What is a cosmetic? This is stuff I wrote around a month ago, so I'm again having to review it to make sure I understand what everything is doing here. So this is just a name of something. Okay. So this extends cosmetic base, which is what we just saw. And then perhaps in here we can have some type of like run method that we can override. So this could be an abstract class. We can say like public abstract void run. And then we have to now override that in here. Otherwise it's going to give us an error. So public void run. And now within here we can add in all of our logic for whatever we want to do. In the case of item fountains, that's where a bunch of items are basically just jumping out of your player and they despawn like less than a second later or so. So first, let's figure out why it's not showing up at the menu. That's because we have to add it here, but what is the best way to do this? So here we're going to add a cosmetic of an item stack here. So add cosmetic takes in a cosmetic base, which takes in a string. Why are we passing in a new item fountain? Okay. So the idea here is we want the cosmetic base to have an icon. All of them should have an icon, which is going to be the item that we have inside of our menu. So we can say private item stack icon, and then we're always going to have an icon, so we can add it into the constructor. So icon, and we can say this.icon equals icon, and then we can just add a basic getter. So public item stack get icon, return this.icon. So that's good to go. But where is this actually being used? Which is right here, and this is actually an error. So here we're going to return this string right here, which is going to be the diamond with a capital D. That's what this is doing right here. And then space fountain. We want to pass in the item stack. So because we're passing in a string here, we want to use that as the name of the icon. So inside the constructor, so we don't have to do this manually each time, we're going to basically pass in the item stack icon and we're going to edit its name. So new item creator, we can pass in icon, and then set name is going to be name, and then get item stack. This is a factory function I created that has a lot of utilities for items. And so this is going to allow us to actually just set the name of the item. Hey Blizzard, welcome to the stream. So we now have an icon there inside a cosmetic base. So now what we can do is we can add in, we can loop through all the cosmetics. Let's see if we can get all the cosmetics. So here we are adding it. Do we have an ability to return it? Does not look like it. So public list cosmetic base, get cosmetics. We can just return this dot cosmetics, and that should be good to go. So now we can loop through these and add them into the actual inventory. We're going to have to know what order to add them in, or we can just check what's currently in the inventory and see its data value, but I feel like that's probably not the best solution. Perhaps we can remove all of the non-enchanted glass here and then check to see if it's air, even though it's the same, well, it's really the same thing. What's the shortcut? Is it F3H to be able to see the things? F3H. I guess so. Okay, so that is black stained glass pane. Okay. What is the exact, hold on, let me draw my build server. I believe it's this right here. So slash item info. That's going to be data value of 15. So now what I can do is I don't have to do math on like where the sides are. I can just check the data value of the item we're going to replace. And then at that stage, I can add in the item. So here we created an inventory, but we want to actually fill that inventory with the different items. So we're going to loop through all of the, wait, this is for the item fountain category. Do we want to make this so it's inside of the category base itself? Because that would be easier so we don't have to write the same code for every single category, which is obviously not that good. So we can say public void add items to inventory. We can pass in an inventory factory. And then within here, we can just say add items to inventory and pass in the inventory factory. And then here's where we can actually access this. Okay. So now we can loop through all the cosmetics. We're going to keep this public getter here just in case we need them in a different situation. But we can say for cosmetic base, cosmetic, and then get cosmetics. I'm using the getter here instead of just directly accessing it, just in case in the future I want to add in anything here. I don't have to update multiple places. I can just go ahead and just edit this one getter right here, and then we're good to go. So now at this stage, we have a loop. We're looping through all the cosmetics within this exact category, and now we can add them into the inventory. So we now want to create an integer, so int slot equals 0. And we kind of want to make sure that we know where the next slot is going to be. So there's probably a better ways to do this, but what I'm going to do is essentially just find the next slot that has the non-enchanted glass instead of manually specifying each character or each slot, like the number. That way it can just automatically populate the non-border slots and replace the non-enchanted glass automatically. We don't have to actually worry about it. So what we can do here is, well, actually, I just thought about this. I want to display what one is enabled for what person. So if I have something unlocked, it will say unlocked for me. But if someone else is opening the same menu and they don't have it unlocked, I want that to say locked for them. So with that said, we can't actually just add it to the inventory directly because this is just a global thing here. We actually need to change this to go inside of a pre-open event or method rather. So public map, I think this is a integer item stack that it returns. This is going to be pre-open, I think. Let me actually look into this. Yeah, it's okay, it's pre-open, and then it takes in a player. So now what I can do is I can see what this user actually has in order to, like what they have in the database unlocked, in order to display locked or unlocked on the item lore inside their menu. So we can say items equals new hash map, and then we can just return items. So here is this. We're going to want to make sure that this is something that occurs not just in item factory or item fountain category, but for all the categories. So perhaps we can do something where we just return some type of method that returns this map, but we can add this in here. So we can say public map integer item stack. Let's see here, get item menu. We can then pass in a player, and then we can say, whoops, let's import player. Items equals new hash map, and then we can return items. Okay, so here's where we're going to actually do this for every single one. And instead of just doing this here, we're going to return, what was the name of the method I just made? Get item menu. Okay, so this will be inside of every single file, but it's going to call a method that's going to populate the inventory for every single category. So instead of actually writing the code for each individual category, we're going to just do it once and it's going to reuse it, which makes sense to do. Okay, so with that said, we now have access to the player. For now, I'm going to just assume that all the players have access to all the cosmetics. That way, if anyone wants to jump on the server, which is the IP is pinned in the comments, or pinned in the top of the chat, I should say, then they can go ahead and try out all the things we're going to be making today. And later on, I'll add in the permission checks to make sure some of them will require a rank, other ones, or most of them will just be locks where you have to vote or play on the server in order to unlock them for free. But for now, everyone will have access to everything. So with that said, this player probably won't be used too much. So now let's loop through all the cosmetics. So, whoops. Here's this. And then we want to actually add this into the inventory. With that said, we have to pass in the inventory as well. So we're going to have an inventory factory. We just call this inv. And within here, we can just pass in inv. Can I pass in this? Okay, cool. So I can do that. And so now we have access to the inventory so we can see what items are what. Now, my question is, I forget exactly how this works because this is something I wrote well over a year ago, this factory here. When are the glass panes added? So, oh, hello everyone. So one of the glass panes added, is it before or after? How do I check? And I guess we can easily determine that by just trying it. So whenever we're going to actually get the category here, or get the menu, we're going to now try and find what the next spot is. Can you make a video on how to make a Minecraft server like this one, please? Um, there's been a lot of work that went into this core of a plugin here. So there's a lot of stuff here. Probably shouldn't have been written in one plugin, but this is something we're working on since 2013. So the amount of details would be a very large series for that. However, whenever I'm working on this server here, my goal is to be live as much as possible. And so there are some previous live streams that are now in video form that you can watch that have most of the development of me changing things and explaining what I'm doing as I go. Okay, so we're going to loop through all the cosmetics, and I want to get a method that's going to give us the next open spot. So we can say public int get next open slot, and then we can pass in an inventory factory, and then let's say int slot equals 0, and we essentially just want to loop through until we see one of these right here, which is a stained glass pane with the ID or the data of 15. So with that said, we can just return slot. And then here we're going to say for item stack item inventory dot, do I not have to get items? We can get an item at a certain slot. I guess that works. Let's use a standard for loop. Int a equals 0, while a is less than inventory dot get size plus plus a. So here we can get the item stack, get item at a, if item dot get type is exactly equal to stained glass pane, and item dot get data is exactly equal to 15. At this stage, we just want to return a. And actually, with that said, we can just return -1 because our slot variable is irrelevant. So there's definitely better ways to do that. Find a better way to do this, but this is the quickest thing to do, so I'm going to go ahead and do this for now. So let's see here. We're going to loop through all the cosmetics. Make a tutorial on how to load Otter player headset fast. I'm not sure what that is, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to help there. Okay, so let's see here. Int slot equals get next open slot. We can pass in the inventory, and then we can say items.put slot as a new item creator. Actually, we might already have access. Whoops, what did that happen? We might already have access to the item through the cosmetic. So cosmetic.getIcon. So we'll just try this for now and let's see what happens. Of course, again, this could be better, but for now we're going to use it because that should work. And then here we're going to get what the menu should look like for each player, which is why we have a player here. Currently, again, everything is going to be unlocked for everyone, but this does give us the ability to, in the future, change who has access to what cosmetic. For example, if there's some items in here you have to unlock through some type of free crate from playing for an hour, then that will be locked until you actually do that. Yeah, the Discord server invite is invalid. A lot of this is from a previous server called Uprising, and so you'll see a lot of incorrect branding and broken links that will be fixed soon. Okay, so let's see here. Oh, how to load other player skulls. That's something that I'm struggling with as well that I eventually have to learn about. I know that Hypixel and other servers have a decent way of doing that, but I currently don't know. So I will eventually be learning how to do that because I need to know how to do that. And then I'll probably be covering the changes on a live stream eventually. I just don't know when that will be. So let's go ahead and deploy this. So I have my auto deployer set up where as soon as I compile, it just deploys to the server. Eventually that will only deploy to test servers, but right now the entire network is a test server, so it's fine. So here we see it's deploying, and it should send us a message in chat here in a second. And so this will be ran whenever the player opens it. And so we're going to get where they are. One thing to keep in mind is that we do need to basically cache or store who has access to what. That way we're not constantly reading the database every single time the player opens an inventory because that's inefficient. So that was done right there. So now I'm going to go ahead and restart hub 2. I do have 2 hubs open, so if one hub restarts, everyone's sent to the other hub, just because we're going to be doing a lot of work in the hubs today. So while that's restarting, let's think about how we're going to store what player has what. We could just have in each individual item fountain, or not item fountain, in each individual cosmetic base, we could have a list of unlocked UUIDs, and then we can list them for whenever a player leaves, and then remove them from that list. So, for example, private list, let's actually have a string because it's probably going to be smaller. So list string, we can then have unlocked. And then what we can do is we can say this.unlocked equals new array list. And then we can say public boolean has unlocked. We can pass in a player. And then we can return unlocked.contains player.getName. Whoops, we have to import this. Now we're using names here instead of UUIDs because this should be shorter or smaller in theory, as well as this isn't going to actually store between players changing their name, so it doesn't actually matter. Which hosting do I host the servers at? Currently I'm using a OVH VPS. Okay, so here we have has unlocked, and we can say public. Actually, one thing we can do here is whenever we have unlocked, we could change this to a map for string boolean, and that might seem confusing at first because why not just use the list? But one thing we could do is if not unlocked.contains key player.getName, we're actually going to be using name a lot. So string name equals player.getName. And so here we can have name. And what we can do here is we can just return unlocked.getName. Now within here, I'm going to say to do read from the database. But for now, because everyone should have everything unlocked, we're just going to say unlocked.puts name true. So it being inside the map or not determines if we've loaded it from the database or not. And if we have, that means that there is a Boolean true or false inside the map. And if we haven't, then this doesn't actually exist in the key value pair, which is what we're actually checking here. So now we can use this. What is this? Oh, that's right. This is no longer an array list, so new hash map. Hi, Kenny. Welcome to the stream. Currently, we are working on different cosmetic things. So all of these right here, the typical stuff you're just going to see on most servers. So here we have a list, or not a list, a map of how to unlock. Now we can use this method here to actually add this into here or to edit the lores, but we're going to do that in a second. So hub 2 should definitely be up at this point. So if I click on this, we now get an exception, I believe. So let me look into that. Yes, okay, we get an exception. So null pointer exception at category base. I think that's because the items can be null. Let me make sure I have the correct line here. My console's on the other monitor, by the way. That's why you guys can't see it. And that's because sometimes people join and it shows their IP in the console. And so I don't want that to be on the stream. Okay, so apparently line 56. Yeah, so the item could be null. So if item is not equal to null, I believe that should fix it. And then let's also add in a check for if they have access to it. Actually, we'll just do that afterwards. So let's actually deploy this to the server. And if you're on hub 2, it'll be restarting here in a second, but you'll just be sent to hub 1. I'm just waiting for the message to pop up. Anytime now. Usually doesn't take this long. Let me see if anything's wrong. Okay, there it is. So I'm going to go ahead and restart hub 2. It'll move us all to hub 1. And then I can go back to Hub 2 after it's restarted, and we should be able to see the actual item in there, hopefully. I should do a typing test. I'm able to type like code fast because I type it so frequently, but a lot of the different typing tests are like random sentences that I'll be very slow at. I've taken them before and I'm very below average, but because I've been programming for so long and it's such familiar syntax, sometimes I can type faster, and so that's why it seems faster than normal. Okay, so Hub 2 is back. I'm not sure why I sent that twice. Okay. So we're still getting an exception, which is on the other monitor. Inventory factory. Cosmetics line 45. Why there? Okay. Where is cosmetics line 45? I don't understand why this is causing the exception. Hello, Hydra. Welcome to the stream. For those wondering, I have my console on the other monitor, so I'm just checking out this error and seeing what went wrong. So this is interesting. I don't think I've looked at this code here, this stream, so let me review this real quick. This is like the main menu that we're on right now. Does that give an exception every time I open it? No. You were clicking around on YouTube and found I was online. Just wanted to say your Discord JS tutorial is very clear. That's awesome. Glad you're able to use it for your school. Yeah, I'm going to be uploading more Discord content soon as well. But yeah, really glad that was able to help. Okay. So where is this? I think there's a problem here, but it's throwing an exception elsewhere once we actually return this. So one thing we can do is just console log the slot that we're getting. I guess this would probably be cleaner to do this over here. Doesn't actually matter. But this really shouldn't like cause a difference here. Or maybe it's because I'm returning -1 and it's not actually finding anything. Let's return 0. And I can add in the console log, but 0 should keep it at the top left of the inventory. So it'll be like right up here. But that's fine because that's going to give us enough information to let us know that nothing's actually working. Or we can just check for -1. So if slot is not equal to -1. -1 means it could not find an open slot. However, one thing we could do here is I'm going to add in a different if statement. Obviously, there's duplicate code here, but this is just temporary. We're going to console log item.getType, colon, and then item.getData.getData. So we can actually make sure our comparisons are correct as well. So let's have this open. Let's go ahead and deploy this. This should give us enough information to actually fix this bug here, so we can actually see the items inside of the menus. Are semicolons required in Java? Yes. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't use them. We're probably asking because in JavaScript, my content, I never use semicolons because I think it makes things look a little less clean, but they are required in Java, so I am going to be using them. Okay, so that just deployed. Let me just wait for the chat message, which is right there. So I'm going to go ahead and restart. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button on the live stream. True, right there. So if you guys haven't subscribed, feel free to subscribe. I'm probably going to be trying to live stream a lot more. I took like a month break from live streaming for a bit. I only started like a month ago anyways. But I'm going to try and aim to live stream more frequently, especially because I want to get more progress done on this as well as one-off keys commands. There'll be a mixture of this type of content as well as working on my npm package that some of you might be familiar with. Okay, so now that's fixed. So it was -1. And now my console, I'm not really seeing... It's returning -1, but I'm not seeing this right here. Because the item's always null, I guess. So that tells me that this is going to open this menu before the glass is actually filled in. And so this isn't going to really help us that much. Let me actually get rid of this. Actually, no, I'll keep this method here, but I'm going to change this. Where is... Okay, I'm going to open up the Block Blast API and go into the inventory factory. This is the actual code that we're working with, but there is a function in here, it's somewhere, that actually fills the borders. I'm assuming I didn't just add in a bunch of numbers to where the border should be. Let's see here. Set enchanted glass. So we're going to be checking for this somewhere. What is glass slots? Maybe I did just add it to a giant list. Where is... Okay, this is the center of the text. That's not what I'm looking for. Don't know where this is. Again, this is some of the code that I wrote well over a year ago. So I'm trying to get a better understanding of what I wrote. And I added in some comments, but I'm still not sure. So apparently my comments weren't very... What is this? If menus... Okay, I'm not sure why I'm clearing something that's empty. Let me actually... Obviously this doesn't do anything, but I always like to do this to do. Why is this here? Just so I'm not creating excess bugs. And then here's just the abstract methods. Okay. So it's something to do with the glass slots, but where are we actually adding to this? Item util. Okay, get inventory size. I think I was in the wrong file. Here it is. Okay. Get glass slots. Okay, so I could just use this, the item util.get glass slots, as a list, and I can see if it contains that while looping through. However, I don't want to do that a whole bunch, I don't think. So we're going to do it just once here. So we can say list integer glass slots equals item util dot get glass slots from inventory dot get size. And they can pass this into the get next open slot here. So we're only calling that and doing all those calculations only once. So this can now be a list of integer called glass slots. And then what we're going to do is we're going to loop through all of these. However, this is going to be a problem because I guess I could just remove it. So we're going to then say, if not glass slot stock contains a. Well, actually, how does this work? You come from Germany. I find your videos great. Awesome. I'm very glad to hear that. Let's see. What mic do I use? I use the Shure SM7B. How secure is your server, like database wise? I believe it's okay. It's fairly secure. Once we get to the actual like production server, not the development test server, things will be a lot more secure. But it's not like there's like a default port with no password or anything like that. But I have had problems with a project I sold in Minecraft years ago, where I sold it and one of the people who bought it didn't know what he was doing, but knew how to do things, if that makes sense. So he set up a MySQL database on the default port with no password, and so that didn't go too well. They quickly closed it after buying it from me, but that was unfortunate. But I'm sure that things aren't perfect right now on the development server. Obviously, like here's like the IP right there, but obviously you can just ping it, so it doesn't actually matter. But on the actual production server, things will be a lot better. I didn't spend too much time on security. Let's see here. Glass slot stock contains A. So I'm basically, this is what is, maybe I should change this. So get glass slots here. Oh, things like that. So when it comes to storing the IPs, it is stored in the database, but for the most part, you have to have access to the actual machine in order to access the database. And then also to again access the machine, you have to have an SSH key. So it is fairly secure. I locked down all the ports aside from SSH and TF565. So all the standard bare bones like basic security is there and a tiny bit more. But it's like if someone knows enough, they might be able to, if that makes sense. But that's true for anything for the most part. Yeah, VPN is a good way to prevent that if that is a concern of yours. Okay, so let's see here. So this is going to return a list of, what is this? I guess this is where I was planning things. This is going to return a list of all the borders, but I don't just want to see if something isn't in the border. I need to keep track of that as well. So we can say list integer used equals new array list. There's definitely better ways to do this, but this is the fastest way. So I'm just gonna, I don't have like all the time in the world to stream at the moment. So I'm just gonna do this to get it working. And then I'm going to add in to do find a better way to do this. So I'll eventually do that probably off stream at some point. But for the most part, we want to pass in used, and then because those are passed in that order, I want to define them here. It doesn't actually matter, but just bugs me. What's the best way to do this here? So here we have where all the borders are, and here's the things that have been used so far. Actually, we don't even need this because we could just check to see if the inventory is null or not, if the item stack is null, because we're assigning an item to that. So if this is not something here, then we can just return A. And then at that point, A now equals the slot, which we're then console logging. So we'll keep that there. And we're making sure we actually found something because we're returning -1 outside of our for loop. And then here we're applying this right here. But what I want to do is, if this doesn't contain this, and inventory.getItem A is exactly equal to null. Let's actually, just in case things change in the future, or inventory.getItem A.getType is exactly equal to error. So we're going to check for null or error if it's not a glass item, then we're going to return A. Now, once we apply the first item, the second time we loop around for the second item, it will be not null and not error. Therefore, we're going to continue the loop and find the next one in increment A. So that seems okay. I'm not sure why I have two to-dos here. There's one here and one here. Okay. So we're going to keep the console log here. We're going to go ahead and build this, and that should automatically deploy. How to make a video and how to configure Git so you do not have to put your password, but put in a passphrase. Yeah, I might be able to do that. Something that I probably should do is just like a GitHub crash course that's like 30 to 40 minutes long of all the basics, because I notice a lot of people in my Discord JS series join the Discord and don't necessarily know all the fundamentals and basics of JavaScript. And so that tells me that they're new to programming, and so having that content there would be helpful for them as well. Okay, so I'm in Hub 2, so I'm going to restart this. So it'll be sent to Hub 1. And then once Hub 2 comes back, we can try this out and see what happens. Hopefully we'll see the diamond item in the item fountain category. We'll see. Is it up yet? There it is. Hey, look at that. So diamond fountain is there. Obviously, there's no actual text on the item, but at least it's there. Now what happens if we add a couple more in? So let's go to the item fountain category. We're going to add a couple more. Let's go gold ingot and iron ingot. Those probably should be reversed in order. So now let's just build this and see what happens. Ideally, actually, this should be more than just this. Let me add in a bunch of things. I'm just going to add in random items here, like a minecart, chain chest plates. I'm just going to go through all this because we want to make sure that it actually loops to the next line. A banner, iron boots, double plant, whatever that is. We already have a diamond. Let's just do diamond sword. Let me add a couple more in here. Diamond boots, diamond leggings, diamond chest plates, and diamond helmet. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and build this. And the goal for adding all these random things here is to ensure that once it hits this slot right here, that'll actually just loop back to the next line. So that's the goal there. So now we're just waiting for the next message here because I deployed before I made those changes. So this is old here. So hub will be restarting right now. And then as we wait for that, I guess we could plan out what we're actually going to have here. Because obviously we don't want some of these things like a banner. That doesn't make too much sense. For those who don't know, the item fountains is basically a bunch of items just like jumping out of your head and they despawn fairly quickly. And so I'm trying to set it up where I can just pass in what item that's going to be, and then the system automatically works. Okay, so that's not good. So it's just using that one slot for some reason. So it's a good thing we tested multiple items here. So in my console log, I'm just seeing slot equals 10 the entire time. So I don't know why that's occurring. Oh, it's because I understand now. We're putting it into the hash map, but we're not actually doing that. So one thing we can do is we could also pass in the item's hash map here. Or let's see here. Forget the exact details of how to do this in Java. Can you all hear me now? But this seems to be working. What happens if I go into a different one? So we see nothing here. So that's good. But inside item fountains, we see all these things here. Cool. So with that said, yeah, it's a premium Java server, so you do have to have an actual account. So this seems to be working here. We have all of these things here. We're just going to get rid of all these and just have diamond. And now let's add in the actual lures to this. So currently, if you just hover over it, it just says whatever it is plus the word fountain. So we want to actually add in some text to that. And then let's see here. So that's going to be probably inside of here. Well, the text is going to be different depending on each individual thing. So we might want to actually like pass in some type of string that we want here. That doesn't seem like the cleanest thing in the world. Let's see here, get item menu. This is something inside a category base. So this is going to be used for all categories. So we can add in a basic like template of what all the items will have. So here we have an icon. So we can just say item stack icon equals this. And then within here, we can actually say new item creator. And then we want to clone this. So we're not actually editing it. And then add lore. Let's actually chain these on different lines. So here we can actually add in different color codes and the word locked or unlocked, depending if they actually have it or not. So with that said, I'm actually going to go into my other monitor. I'm going to look up for different check marks and X Unicode. So Unicode check mark. There's on my other monitor real quick. So I'm going to copy this. And what we want to do is we want to say Boolean unlocked equals, let's see here, cosmetic dot has unlocked player. So again, what this is doing is we're just going to store into the map their name and then a Boolean. And you might be thinking, why not just use a list to see if they have it unlocked or not? But if they exist in this map, that means we've actually checked the database. And the Boolean is going to be if they have it unlocked or not. That way we don't actually check the database multiple times. We also want to make sure that we remove them from this whenever they leave the server. So that's something we have to keep in mind. To do remove the player from this when they leave the server. Obviously, that's just going to increase the memory usage if we don't do that. Okay, so with that said, let's close some of the stuff that we don't need. So now we can say unlocked is this, otherwise it's this. I actually have custom color codes, I believe. So let me test that in chat real quick. We can say at locked test, at unlocked test. Okay, cool. So I do. There's custom color codes in the actual code to be able to do that. So we can say at unlocked, and then the check mark. Let's say unlocked, and then at locked. And then let me go to my browser and look up an X for the Unicode. Unicode X. I could just also use actual character X, but I feel like some of the actual Unicode ones might look slightly different. So it makes them look better, I believe. Okay, so let me just paste that in. And so now everyone should have this enabled. Because when it comes to has unlocked, we are just assigning true. In the future, we're going to add in if you actually have it enabled or not, such as, you know, if you have a rank, you should have all of them unlocked, or if you've unlocked them through the free crates from playing or voting on the server. But for now, we're just going to give them to everyone for testing and all that. So we can now say add lore and action, click, and X. And X is another custom one, same thing with and action. This is going to basically reset the actual color code to the default. So click to enable. Maybe that should be if they have it unlocked. So if unlocked is here, and if we pass in null, it's actually going to ignore this entire line. That makes it really convenient for us. So we don't have to like add this into its own if statement. So and action click to enable. And we're just going to keep it like that for now. We could add in other things, other strings, for example. But for now, we're just going to keep it like this. This will be the same thing for all the items on all the categories. And so that is one downside to this, but we only have to write the code once. So now let's see here. I want to make it so we can actually say that they don't have access to it, and that when they click on it, it's going to play some sound and say you don't have access to it. So let's see. With that said, we now need to listen to whenever they're clicking on it. And so this is going to most likely be different for every category, unfortunately. So we can't just write the code for all categories. But we could add in this category base right here, a method to try and see if they have access to the cosmetic they're clicking on. Is there going to be bedwars at some point? Possibly in the far future, but for now I'm mostly focusing on games that don't really require too much PvP because I don't have the best anti-cheat solution at the moment. And so I'm trying to focus on things that are going to create the best user experience with that in mind. And so most of these things, such as like Skyblock and stuff, don't have a heavy focus on PvP. Okay, so we have this. I'm assuming that's going to work just because we're just, setting it right in the inventory. So now the question is, we need something to be able to see, enable the certain item they clicked on. So we have to, one, get the exact cosmetic from the item slot, which this should be called slot, not I. So now we know exactly what inventory slot they clicked on. This method right here is called whenever someone clicks on something, by the way. You got kicked out for jumping. I don't know exactly. Sometimes there's gonna be problems because everything is in beta, so that might be fixed eventually. Why are these like that? Oh, probably because I'm on 1.16 and all the textures don't actually work anymore. Okay, so let's see here. We need a method to be able to see if the person has it unlocked, or we first need to get the actual cosmetic item for the individual slot. And so we basically just need to reverse what we just did. So here we're getting the slot, and that's where we're actually setting it. And I guess at this point, if we go into cosmetic base, we could have private int slot equals -1. And then we could set this, so we can say public void set slot int slot, and then this dot slot equals slots, and then public int get slot. And then we can return that. So this is something that is going to be dynamically set as the user uses it. So here we're going to have, when we're actually opening this, if this actually works, we can say cosmetic.setSlots as slot. So there's that. So now we're going to actually store that into the cosmetic base, so we have access to it. And that means later, whenever we're clicking on it, we can get the cosmetic from that exact slot. So with that said, we can just simply say public cosmetic base, so it is the actual base class, and so any cosmetic we're using will be fine. We can then say get cosmetic int slots, and then we can loop through all of them. We're going to use the getter here. The server name is BlockBlast. The IP is pinned in the chat. And then if cosmetic.getSlot is exactly equal to this, we're just going to return cosmetic. And then here we're going to return null. So there's that. So now we can go back over here, and whenever we're clicking on this, we could say cosmetic base, or cosmetic equals get cosmetic from the slot. And then if the cosmetic is not null, that means we actually return something. So if we're clicking on the glass, for example, okay, what is happening here? If we click on the glass, for example, then that's going to return null. So like this isn't a cosmetic right here. However, this is. So we need to make sure we actually differentiate those. What text editor am I using? This is IntelliJ. It's a Java IDE. So here's a cosmetic. We're going to make sure it actually exists. And now under cosmetic base, I believe we added this run method. But first we want to see if we actually have this unlocked. So we can say if cosmetic.has unlocked player, else effectutil.play play deny sound. So this will play some sound to the player. And then we can also send them a message.send to player, and error, another custom color code that I can then change throughout the entire project if I want to change the error color. So, and error, you do not have that unlocked. And then depending on what that actually is, we might want to add in a custom message, such as you need to have VIP for this, or you can unlock that in crates. But for now, we're going to stick with just a basic message. Then we can say cosmetic.run. Okay, I see a bunch of exceptions just randomly spammed within the console out of nowhere, so I'll check those out in a few seconds here. Okay, so this should work. Right now, we are setting everything to false. Where is it? We're setting it to false, so we don't actually have access to these. And so with that said, we should get this message and this sound effect. However, after that, we can set it to true, and we should see this run right here. And for testing under item fountain, we're just going to say, we're just going to console log running item fountain. So I'll be able to see if that works or not. So with that said, let's go ahead and build this. And then we should see it deployed to hub 2, and then I'll restart hub 2 and everyone should be sent to hub 1, and we'll see if it works. And then from there, we can make the actual item fountain functionality work and then add in the items we want, which I might do off stream because it's not going to be too interesting. But then after that, we can work on the vehicles. So we'll see what happens. Might actually have to go in like 30 minutes, so we might just work on the vehicles and see how far we can get there. So now we're just waiting for a message in chat that says that it's been uploaded, just like that. So I'm going to restart. There's 2 people in kit PvP teaming. Currently, there's no rules against that. I don't know if there will be. On most servers I've owned before with kit PvP, there's always been some number of teaming. It's very hard to enforce that, to stop people from doing that for the most part. Now we're just waiting for hub 2 to show, and it should be up any second. There it is. So now if I click on this, okay, so it shows that. Did I not say any actual text, or did I just put that? Oh, I didn't actually say anything. Okay, well, we know it works because we see the X there. So it says you do not have that unlocked. So that's good, that works. Now we're going to go back and we're going to change this to true. And again, this is not just going to be a true or false. We will eventually check the database to see who has actual access to this. So if you have a rank, or if you've unlocked it through a crate or whatever it might be. My favorite language is JavaScript. I'm using Java here because that's what you have to use basically for Minecraft plugins. Like you can use other things, but it gets kind of weird. So I just like to stick to Java. So hub 2 will be restarting here in a second. And then at that point, we should see everything working. Okay, so it's deployed. We should see a chat message here. And then once I actually try it, we should see this in the console, which you guys won't see because it's on my different monitor, my other monitor. Let's restart this. Everything seems to be going pretty well so far when it comes to this progress. I'm just waiting for Hub 2 to show up. There it is. Okay. So when I click on this, it says running item fountain in my console. You can't see it because it's on my other monitor, so people's IPs don't get shown. but you can see that the text is working and now says it's unlocked. And we might also want to change the text of the color of the actual item text. So where is that? So here's the icon.getPayment, not get payments, cosmetic.getIcon. Been working with Stripe lately. So let's see. Here, that should be that. I'm not sure why this isn't working. Perhaps chat color dot strip color. So let's actually remove the chat color from that because it could be there by default. For some reason. Because and item should be like a yellow color, but we don't see that here. Here we see a gray on the actual name of the item. So now let's actually get this to work. So whenever we're running this, we're going to basically want the ability to spawn in a bunch of items that are going to just jump in random directions. And then those items will despawn after a certain amount of time, which we can check how long it's lived, basically. When it comes to OBS, I only use OBS for streaming. I'm probably not the best person to ask for when it comes to that. I use Camtasia for recording and editing, but I don't know too much about OBS. There's probably a lot I have to learn as well. It is not available for cracked clients. You have to have premium in order to join. Okay, so item fountain here. This is something that there's going to be a lot of instances of because add cosmetic new item fountain. So I want to basically have the listeners inside of this one category where there's only one instance of this. That way we're not having a bunch of different listeners. So with that said, does this automatically extend anything? Let's have this extend or implement listener, I mean. And then inside of the constructor here, we can say event utility.register events to this. So if there's ever any events we have to add into individual categories, they will automatically be registered because we're extending category base. So now with that said, we can say event handler public void on time. This is a custom event that I have that basically is fired every so often. It gives us access to a current ticks. And this way I can add in a lot more things without adding in a lot more repeating tasks. And it helps with the ticks per second on the server. So we can say if ticks is exactly equal to 20, for example, this will make it so every second this is occurring. However, we're going to just do 10. So 2 times a second this will occur. And at this stage, we want access to a list of players who have this enabled. And I don't necessarily want to store a list of names because then we have to also have another loop to actually get the player from the name. And so that doesn't work too well. However, we have to be aware of storing players in memory isn't the best thing in the world. But in this exact case, players aren't switching worlds. What is happening? Okay, hello everyone. In this exact case, players aren't switching worlds a lot. And so it shouldn't actually corrupt anything within the player object itself. Because I believe that's the main problem with the player object is a lot of things changing in their inventory or switching worlds, where in the hub, that's not really happening too much. So that is one thing we can do here. So the goal here is, let's see here, private list. This, okay, I might change this to do really think about this. So enabled. And then here we can say enabled equals new array list. Because this is obviously a bad practice. But I'm not sure if it actually matters in this use case. And it might actually speed things up in the actual runtime of the server. So I'll put more thought into this and look into more details of why this, the exact details of why this is bad off stream. So here we have a list of enabled players. How do we add people to that? So whenever we're actually clicking on it right here, we can then say, if not, okay, I feel like this is, I really just shouldn't do this actually. We're just gonna have their names. So now I can say if, let's see here, string name equals player.getName. So I'm going to go ahead and, what is cosmetic.run going to do in this use case? Under item fountain, this isn't that necessary. Also, this should have the player. So here we have access to the player. Let's go ahead and import that. That's not what I wanted. Okay, so now we have access to the player, and we can then pass in the player here. So we're going to have the things here, but in reality, this might be more useful for other things. So I'm just going to keep it set up like this. But for the most part, we can just say enable.add name. String name equals player.getName. Let's spell string correctly. We can say if not, okay, let's spell string correctly. If not enabled.contains name, we can just do that. Does it have, is there, okay, I don't think there's a way to just add it if it's not there. So we're just going to do a standard check there. So now it's added to the enabled. We also want to listen for player leave, which is a combination of player quit and player kick, which is a custom event. So on player leave, we're going to have player leave event. We're then going to say enable.remove event.getPlayer.getName. So we're going to ensure that that doesn't exist anymore. So every 10 ticks, we want to loop through all the players. So string name of enabled, and then player of buckets. Well, actually, yeah, we can do pro plugin.getPlayer name. Now we have access to the player. For whatever reason, if it doesn't exist, if player is not equal to null. So at this stage, we now want to spawn in whatever item they have. However, we don't know what exact item they have right here, so we have to store that somewhere. So we can change this to a map of string item stack. We can also rename this to, or we'll just keep it enabled actually. We're going to change this to new hash map. And so if you scroll down, contains key, and then we're going to say put name as item stack, which is what they actually clicked on. So now we have that. And so now we want a map.entry of string item stack entry. This is now going to be enabled.entry set. And so we can say string name equals entry.getKey, and then item stack item equals entry.getValue. So there's that. Then we can say player.getWorld dot drop item, player.getLocation dot add 0, 1, 0, and then pass in the item. I think that would work. Now this is going to spawn in a bunch of items, but they're not going to actually despawn, so we have to check for that. So we're going to say item stack item equals this. I think this is actually just an item itself. Okay, it is. So we're going to change this, let's see here, to spawn, and we're just going to change this to item. I am programming a Minecraft server, but more specifically, we are creating this this feature here called item fountains. It's one of the cosmetics where if you click on this, there's going to be a bunch of diamonds spawning from your head that despawn after like a second or so. So that's what we're currently working on, is we're trying to improve the cosmetic features and then also add in the item fountains. Okay, so now we have access to the item. Let's see here. I'm going to make a list of items. This is going to be a temporary thing, mostly for testing. And then we can say items equals new array list. And then scrolling down here, we can add the item to that. So items.add item. Now here we're going to see if it's every 10 ticks. Otherwise, if ticks is exactly equal to 20 times 2, for example, so every 2 seconds, because there's 20 ticks in a second, we can now loop through all the items. So item, items, and then we can, not console log, that's JavaScript. We can console log item.get ticks lived. So this is going to give me an idea of the exact item. And with this said, I think that I want to make it so only one item is spawned. So with that said, we can say enabled.clear temporarily. So to do remove this. That way only one item is spawned. And also to make things easier, I'm going to make it so only I can enable this. So if cosmetic is null and ranks.owner.hasRank player, sound keeps cutting out for some reason. I have to look into that. Okay, so we're now going to remove all the items if they're alive for more than a second. And we're going to continuously spawn in the items here. However, I want to make this act a little different. So item.add or .set velocity, new vector. Let's try 0, 0.50. I'm just going to try out some values here. Can make a border around the outskirts of kit PvP. I might be able to add that eventually, but right now it's not a huge priority currently. Let me go ahead and build this. I mean, there will be some people who are camping, there'll be some people who are teaming. That type of stuff will just naturally occur in kit PvP, and it's very hard to actually like moderate that. So those things on previous servers are things I basically just said, okay, this is fine to do, and some people liked it, some people didn't. So this should be deploying soon. Okay, so it's deploying, and then Hub 2 will restart soon. Are you all able to hear me now? I restarted my mic a few seconds ago. OBS is saying it's picking up audio, so I think you can. All right, so let's go back to the hub once it's done starting up. Okay, so that kind of works. They're stacking together, which I know how to fix that. But that kind of works. That's kind of the idea. Probably going to spawn in more of them. Let's see what that would look like. So we're essentially just going to say like every 2 ticks, and then this right here, we don't necessarily need to do every 2 ticks. So we're going to say else if ticks is exactly equal to 20. Let's do that every second. Let's see here. So when it comes to making them not stack, we have to give them different names. So we can say item.get item stack. What's the best way to do this? I don't think my item creator automatically clones. So new item creator. We're going to try this. Set name. Let's see, what's the best way to do this? Hold on, let me Google something. I'm just on my other monitor real quick. Okay, that's what it was. So we're going to set the name to random string utils dot random alphanumeric, and then let's just say 6.2. That's not necessary actually. Okay, so this is going to set this name in theory. We'll see, because we're getting item.get item stack, and I don't think my item creator actually clones what it's given. So with that said, we can console log item.get item stack.get item meta.get display name. So we can console log that to see where it's going. And then I also want to possibly add in random values here. So let's see. Let's just try this and see what this does. Maybe increasing this a little bit and increasing this a tiny bit more. Okay, so let's go ahead and build this. And I'm seeing a lot of these things. No, there's only a couple of them actually. So it is despawning them. And so we're wanting it to actually move left and right in various ways. And so math.random should give us a random effect right here. So it's going to go in like top left, bottom right, things like that, like random directions. And also it's going to spawn a lot more of them because previously this should be actually 5 times more of them. So we'll see what happens there. So we'll be restarting hub 2 here in a second. I also have to go in like 5 to 10 minutes. So we're probably just going to finish up this feature. And then in future streams, why is that like that? I'll have to fix that. In future streams, we'll add in more of the cosmetics. So that is now uploaded. We're going to go ahead and restart. And then now we're just waiting for hub 2 to go back up. I have no idea if this is going to actually work when it comes to making them not stack together, because obviously that's not something we want. Okay, that's a little weird. It could use some work. The velocity needs to be a lot less. But I can also tell that the name of the item did not actually change. So that needs to be fixed. So, wait, can I set the item stack? Oh, I can. Okay, easy fix then. Item.set item stack. Okay, this is a mess. What is happening here? We're gonna create a location. Let's say item creator equals this. And then we can say item creator dot get item stack. So we're gonna spawn the item. We're going to name the item a random name to prevent stacking. There are things I can do in like the spigot config, I believe. But I want to make sure that things that should stack still will stack, but in this one specific case they won't. And then we're also going to set the velocity and ensure we remove the item after 1 second. Are you going to give the source code? Most of the source code will be private. However, there will be a lot of utilities that I'm starting to slowly pull out of this giant project here that I've been working on since 2013. And those will be open source and good to use as for like other servers and other projects as well. But as of now, those aren't recommended to use, even though some are on my GitHub. And most of the source code will remain private. Okay, so here we're going to clean this up a little bit, add in some comments. I'm going to keep this console log here so I can see in my console what's happening. Let's see here. Let's slow this down a tiny, tiny bit. And let's see how this does. Because this is a little crazy. This is definitely not intended. Okay, so this is good to go, and we should see it actually uploaded soon. Some of these values I might edit off stream just to get like the actual things correct to get it looking well, but for the most part, the concept works. Let me go ahead and restart Hub 2. Or did I just restart Hub 2? I do not. Okay. So for the most part, the concept works. And then in future streams, we'll be tackling other things. It'd be kind of cool to get vehicles where like you can fly around in a minecart. And again, these will be things that anyone will be able to use during the development process. But once the actual server launches, some of them will be required for ranks, but a vast majority of them will require you to like vote for the server in order to get them. Okay, so let's go to Hub 2. Okay, so now let's see what's going on here. So they're not stacking. That's good. Oh, I get it. Okay, so the velocity is way too much, obviously. But I also not applying a possible chance of having a negative velocity. So that's one thing I can fix. But obviously this needs to be improved to not be that crazy. But the concept works at least. And if we look in the console, there's the randomly generated names to ensure they don't stack. So that worked. But let's see here. Let me add in some to-dos in my code. So I can remove this console log. That's good. To-do. Change the velocity and add a 50% chance of it being negative, which is obviously very simple to do. And then to-do play around with how frequently we spawn in the items. But for the most part, this works, aside from those two things. And then also we can add in a to-do, add more items. Yeah, they're definitely going a little crazy. The diamonds are. So those need to be improved. But the concept works at least. That's the idea here. But I think that's going to be it for this stream. I do have to go in a few minutes, so this is a good stopping point. The next stream, we could finish this up as well as hopefully tackle another one of the features, one of the cosmetic categories, now that a lot of the systems are improved. And so it should speed up the next stream as well. I'm not sure when that will be, but if you're interested in that, be sure to subscribe to the channel or subscribe to the YouTube notification role in the One Off Keys Discord server. But that is it for the stream, so I want to thank everyone for stopping by.